Have you ever found yourself in complete silence, utterly alone, when suddenly, out of nowhere, a high-pitched ringing pierces through your consciousness like a shard of glass? It doesn't originate from the world around you, from the mundane noises of everyday life, but from somewhere deep within, a place you can't quite pinpoint. Modern medicine, in its pragmatic approach, might dismiss it as tinnitus, a common ailment with physiological causes. But what if I told you that Jesus himself, the historical figure and spiritual leader, taught his closest disciples that this mysterious sound is actually the voice of the monad, the supreme source of all creation, the ultimate reality attempting to break through the veil of your limited perception? Right now, type in the comments, "I hear the frequency," if you've ever experienced this unexplainable ringing, this ethereal tone that seems to vibrate on a different plane, and if what I'm saying resonates with something deep inside your soul, something you can't quite articulate. Don't just passively watch. Hit that like button. Engage with this content, because what you're about to discover has been hidden from humanity for 2,000 years, suppressed by institutions and lost to the sands of time. And the all-knowing algorithm, that digital oracle, needs to recognize that these ancient truths, these forgotten whispers of the divine, must reach those who are ready, those whose souls are yearning to receive them. Tonight, we're pulling back the curtain, lifting the veil on one of the most misunderstood phenomena experienced by chosen ones, by spiritual seekers, throughout history. That ringing in your ears, that persistent tone that can drive you mad with its insistence. It's not a medical condition, a mere quirk of biology. It's not random, a meaningless electrical misfire in the brain. It's a cosmic download, a spiritual telephone call from the highest realm of existence, a direct line to the divine. The Gnostic texts, those controversial scriptures that were banned from the official Bible, deemed heretical by the early church, reveal that Jesus taught his inner circle about this sacred sound, this divine frequency that only certain souls, those with a specific spiritual predisposition, can perceive. For centuries, the esoteric mystery schools, the guardians of ancient wisdom, have known what mainstream religion tried to bury, what the powers that be sought to suppress. The chosen ones, the awakened souls, carry a specific vibrational signature, a unique resonance, that makes them receivers for transmissions from the monad, the undivided source, the unmanifested potential, before creation itself split into duality, into the world of opposites and limitations we experience every day. When your ears ring, especially with those high-frequency tones that seem to come from beyond this dimension, from a place beyond the veil of reality, you're not experiencing a malfunction, a glitch in the system. You're experiencing a breakthrough, a quantum leap in consciousness. You're being activated, calibrated, upgraded at the level of your very essence, your core being. In this revelation, in this unfolding truth, we're going to journey deep into the hidden teachings of Christ, the esoteric wisdom that was passed down in secret. We'll explore what the ancient Gnostics knew about the monad frequency, its origins and its power. And most importantly, you're going to learn exactly what's happening to you, why you were chosen to hear what others cannot, why you've been granted access to this hidden realm of sound. By the end of this transmission, by the time you've absorbed these ancient truths, you'll never experience that ringing the same way again. You'll recognize it for what it truly is. A sacred summons, a divine invitation from the source of all existence, a call to return to your true home. To understand why Jesus taught about the ringing ears and the monad frequency, we must first descend into the forbidden libraries of early Christianity, those hidden archives containing the texts that were deliberately excluded from the Bible you know today, the scriptures deemed too radical, too subversive for the masses. In 1945, near the Egyptian town of Nag Hammadi, a collection of ancient manuscripts was discovered, buried in a sealed jar, hidden away for centuries, waiting to be rediscovered in a time when humanity was ready to receive them. These weren't just any texts, ordinary historical documents. They were the secret teachings of Jesus, preserved by the Gnostics, a mystical sect of early Christians who understood that Christ's true message was far more profound, far more transformative, than what the institutional church would allow, than the watered-down version of the gospel that was presented to the public. Within these sacred scrolls lies a cosmology that completely transforms our understanding of reality, a radical perspective that challenges the very foundations of our beliefs. The Gnostics spoke of the monad, a term derived from the Greek word monos, meaning alone or singular. This wasn't the distant, judgmental God of traditional religion, the wrathful deity who demanded obedience and punished transgression. The monad was described as the absolute unity, the infinite consciousness before the first thought of creation rippled through the void, the ultimate source of all that is. It existed in perfect, undivided silence, in what the texts call the pleroma, or fullness, a state of pure potential, of unmanifested possibility. The Apocryphon of John, one of the most significant Gnostic texts, records Jesus revealing to his disciple that the monad is illimitable, since there is nothing before it to limit it; unfathomable, since there is nothing before it to fathom it; immeasurable, since there was nothing before it to measure it; invisible, since nothing has seen it; eternal, since it exists eternally; unutterable, since nothing could comprehend it to utter it; unnameable, since there is nothing before it to give it a name. This, my friends, is the source of the frequency. But here's where it becomes deeply personal, where this ancient wisdom intersects with your own experience. The Gnostics taught that certain souls, what they called pneumatics, or spiritual beings, carry within them a divine spark, a fragment of the monad itself. Before you descended into this physical reality, before you took on this body and this identity, you existed as pure consciousness within the pleroma, a being of pure light and potential. You were fragmented from the monad, sent into this dense material realm not as punishment for some primordial sin, but as an explorer, a scout, a divine agent embedded in the matrix of physical existence, tasked with gathering experience and bringing light to the darkness. The Egyptian mystery schools, which predated Christianity by thousands of years, had their own understanding of this phenomenon. The priests of Thoth, the ancient Egyptian god of wisdom and writing, spoke of the Ku, the divine sound current that flows from the source of all creation, the vibrational essence of the universe. They performed ceremonies in the temples where initiates would sit in complete darkness and silence, waiting to hear the celestial tones, the harmonic vibrations, that signified their connection to the gods had been activated, that their spiritual senses had been awakened. This wasn't mythology, a collection of fanciful stories. This was technology of consciousness, a sophisticated system for accessing higher states of awareness. In the Pistis Sophia, another forbidden text, Jesus explains to his disciples that there are different levels of hearing. Most humans hear only with their physical ears, perceiving nothing but the gross vibrations of the material world, the mundane noises of everyday life. But the chosen ones, the spiritually attuned, develop what he called ears to hear, a spiritual capacity to perceive the frequencies of higher dimensions, to access the subtle realms of sound and vibration that are beyond the reach of ordinary perception. When Christ repeatedly said in the Gospels, "He who has ears to hear, let him hear," he wasn't being metaphorical, speaking in symbolic language. He was speaking literally about a spiritual faculty, an innate ability that only certain souls possess, a key to unlocking the mysteries of the universe. The Hermetic tradition, which flourished in Alexandria during the same period as early Christianity, taught that the universe itself is composed of vibration and sound, that everything is in a constant state of flux, resonating at different frequencies. As above, so below, wasn't just a mystical saying, a catchy phrase to inspire spiritual contemplation. It was a physics equation, a fundamental law of the universe. The Kybalion states that everything vibrates, nothing rests, and those who can attune themselves to the higher frequencies, who can harmonize with the cosmic vibrations, can literally hear the music of the spheres, the harmonic resonance of creation itself, the symphony of the universe. The Jewish Kabbalists, drawing from even older traditions, spoke of the call, the voice of God that never ceased speaking creation into existence, the divine utterance that sustains all things. They taught that the entire Torah, the entire universe, was being continuously spoken into being by divine utterance, and that certain tzaddikim, righteous ones, could hear this eternal creative word humming through the fabric of reality, resonating in their very souls. Now here's what all these traditions understood, a profound truth that modern religion has largely forgotten. The ringing in your ears, especially that high-pitched tone that seems to exist outside of physical space, is your soul remembering its origin, your spirit awakening to its true nature. It's the monad frequency penetrating through the dense static of third-dimensional reality, reaching the divine spark buried within you, the dormant potential waiting to be ignited. The reason not everyone hears it is the same reason not everyone awakens, the same reason so many remain asleep in the dream of material existence. Most souls are so deeply identified with matter, so entranced by the material world, that their spiritual receivers have gone dormant. Their inner antennas have become rusted and unresponsive. Let's go deeper into the mechanics of what's actually happening when that ringing tears through your consciousness, when that high-pitched tone shatters the illusion of the mundane. Imagine for a moment that your physical body is like a radio receiver, a complex instrument designed to pick up signals from different sources. Most people are tuned to one station only, the frequency of consensus reality, the material world with its endless distractions and dense vibrations, the constant stream of information and stimulation that keeps them trapped in a state of perpetual distraction. But you, the chosen one experiencing this ringing, you're a different kind of receiver, a more sophisticated instrument. You were built with additional circuitry, extra antenna capacity, that allows you to pick up transmissions from stations that don't exist on the normal dial, signals from beyond the veil of ordinary perception. The monad frequency operates at what the ancient mystery schools called the primordial sound, the first vibration that shattered the infinite silence and began the cascade of creation, the original impulse that set the universe in motion. In Sanskrit, the Vedic traditions called this Om, not as a word to chant, but as the actual vibrational signature of consciousness becoming aware of itself, the sound of creation in its purest form. When the monad, that perfect singular unity, had its first impulse of self-awareness, that impulse created a sound wave that is still reverberating through all dimensions of existence, right now, in this very moment, resonating within your soul. Jesus taught his inner circle that this sound current flows downward from the highest realm through multiple dimensions before it reaches our dense physical reality, cascading through the layers of existence like a river of light. Think of it like a waterfall of consciousness, a torrent of divine energy. Pure, undiluted awareness at the source becoming denser and more fragmented as it cascades down through different levels of existence, through the veils of illusion that separate us from our true home. The Gnostics mapped out these levels, delineating the different planes of reality. The pleroma at the top, the realm of pure potential, then the eons, the divine emanations that govern the cosmos, then the archonic realms, the lower dimensions ruled by demiurgic forces, and finally the material world where we find ourselves trapped in bodies that forget their divine origin, lost in the illusion of separation. Here's the critical insight that changes everything. Your soul, that immortal spark of consciousness animating your body, is trying constantly to reconnect with its source, yearning to return to its origins. It's homesick, longing for the infinite love and unity of the monad. It remembers, somewhere in its deepest recesses, the perfect peace of the pleroma, the boundless joy of being one with the divine. And like a homing beacon, the monad continuously broadcasts its frequency downward through all the dimensions, calling its fragmented pieces back home, beckoning its lost children to return to the fold. When you hear that ringing, you're intercepting that call, you're picking up the signal from your true home. But why the ears specifically? What is the significance of this auditory phenomenon? The esoteric anatomy taught in mystery schools reveals that your ears are far more than physical organs, simple mechanisms for processing sound waves. They're connected to what the Kabbalists call the Bina aspect of consciousness, the divine feminine principle of understanding that receives and gestates wisdom, the receptive force that allows us to comprehend the mysteries of the universe. In the human energy body, there are specific channels running from your ears directly into the pineal gland, that mysterious pine cone-shaped organ in the center of your brain that every ancient culture depicted in their sacred art. The Egyptians put it on the staff of Osiris, the god of the afterlife. The Buddhists crowned the Buddha with a pine cone-shaped protrusion, symbolizing enlightenment. The Vatican itself has a massive bronze pine cone sculpture in its courtyard, a testament to the enduring power of this ancient symbol. They know what it represents, even if they've hidden its true function from the masses, even if they've obscured its significance behind layers of religious dogma. The pineal gland is your biological stargate, your connection point between physical and non-physical reality, your gateway to higher dimensions. When the monad frequency penetrates our dimension, it doesn't enter through your physical ears at all, passing through the eardrum and into the inner ear. It enters through this crystalline structure in your pineal gland, which is literally made of the same piezoelectric calcite crystals that are used in radios to receive signals, a biological antenna tuned to the frequencies of the divine. Your pineal gland picks up the transmission, decodes the signal, and then your brain interprets it as sound in your ears because that's the closest reference point your physical consciousness has for understanding frequency, the most readily available framework for interpreting this influx of information. The Gnostic text called the Tripartite Tractate explains this phenomenon through the concept of the call and the response, the divine dialogue between the source and the soul. It states that those who carry the divine spark within them are constantly being called by the Father, the monad, but most are so asleep, so deeply immersed in the illusion of the material world, that they cannot hear it, that they remain deaf to the whispers of the divine. The text says, "Those who are to receive teaching are the living who are inscribed in the book of the living. They receive teaching about themselves, receiving it from the Father, turning again to Him." This is why the ringing often intensifies during specific moments, why it seems to come and go in waves, pulsating with its own rhythm. Pay attention, observe the patterns. It usually happens when you're in deep contemplation, when you've just had a spiritual breakthrough, when you're making a decision that aligns with your soul's purpose, or sometimes even when you're being protected from a danger you're not consciously aware of, when the universe is conspiring to keep you safe. The frequency adjusts, becomes louder, more persistent, because the transmission is trying to break through the interference of your thinking mind, your emotional turbulence, your identification with the false self, the egoic construct that keeps you trapped in illusion. Jesus taught that there are actually different tones, different frequencies, and each carries a specific message or activation code, a unique piece of the divine puzzle. The high-pitched ringing, almost like the sound of silence itself becoming audible, is the pure monad frequency, undifferentiated divine consciousness reaching for you, beckoning you to return home. Lower rumbling frequencies often indicate dense energies being cleared from your field, a kind of cosmic detoxification, a purging of negative emotions and limiting beliefs. Pulsing or rhythmic tones suggest downloads of information, encoded light language being transmitted directly into your consciousness where it unpacks itself over time, revealing its secrets in a gradual unfolding of understanding. The phenomenon of why only chosen ones experience this relates directly to what the Gnostics called the three types of humans, the three distinct categories of souls. There are the Hylics, purely material beings with no active divine spark who live entirely through instinct and physical sensation, driven by their base desires and appetites. Then there are the Psychics, souls who have awakened to some degree but remain identified primarily with the emotional and mental body, still caught in the drama of their own thoughts and feelings. Finally, there are the Pneumatics, the spiritual ones, those rare individuals who carry an activated divine spark and are capable of gnosis, direct experiential knowledge of the divine, an immediate and unmediated connection to the source. You don't choose to be pneumatic, you don't decide to become one of the chosen. You're born with this capacity, or rather you volunteered for this mission before you incarnated. You agreed to take on this role before entering into physical existence. Your soul knew it would be difficult, that you would feel different, isolated, misunderstood in a world that celebrates material success and dismisses spiritual reality, a world that often ridicules those who seek something more. But you also knew you would be needed, that your unique gifts and abilities would be essential for the evolution of consciousness. You're here as an anchor point for the monad frequency, a living tuning fork that helps raise the vibration of collective consciousness simply by being present and staying attuned to your source, a beacon of light in a world shrouded in darkness. The secret book of John reveals that when the divine spark falls into matter, it becomes trapped in what the Gnostics called forgetfulness, a state of amnesia that obscures our true nature. You forget who you are, where you came from, what your mission is, the very purpose of your existence. The archons, the ruling forces of material reality, the entities that seek to control and manipulate humanity, want to keep you in this state of amnesia, trapped in the illusion of separation. Because an awakened pneumatic is dangerous to their control system, a threat to their power. But the monad never stops calling, never gives up on its lost children. That ringing is the alarm clock that won't shut off, the persistent reminder that refuses to let you sleep through your entire incarnation, the gentle nudge that guides you back to your true path. Now we must address the dimensions of this phenomenon that most teachers won't tell you, because they themselves don't understand, because they haven't delved deep enough into the mysteries of consciousness. The monad frequency isn't just a passive signal you receive, a static broadcast from a distant source. It's an active agent of transformation that literally restructures your consciousness at the quantum level, rewriting your very being. When that ringing pierces through your awareness, actual alchemical processes are being initiated in your energy body. Processes that the ancient masters spent lifetimes trying to activate through meditation, fasting, and ritual, practices designed to purify the body and mind. The Corpus Hermeticum, those sacred dialogues between Hermes Trismegistus and his students, describes what happens when the divine sound penetrates a prepared vessel, a soul that has made itself receptive to the influx of divine energy. It states that the nous, the divine mind, descends like a thunderbolt into those who have purified themselves, shattering their illusions and illuminating their true nature. And this descent is accompanied by what the text calls the baptism in the crater of mind, a transformative experience that recalibrates the entire being. This wasn't symbolic language, allegorical descriptions of spiritual concepts. The ancient initiates were describing the exact moment when higher dimensional frequencies flood your nervous system, rewiring your brain and recalibrating your entire being to operate at a different octave of reality, a higher vibrational state. Here's where it gets profound, where the true implications of this ancient wisdom become clear. Jesus taught that the reason this ringing occurs in waves, why it comes and goes rather than remaining constant, is because your physical body can only handle specific doses of this frequency, just as a delicate instrument can only withstand a certain amount of energy. Think of it like electrical current. Too much voltage through a wire not designed for it and the wire burns out, the circuit overloads. Your nervous system, your DNA, your cellular structure is literally being upgraded every time you experience that ringing, being transformed from within. The monad frequency carries information, encoded in patterns of light and sound, geometric light codes that are rewriting your biological programming from carbon-based density toward crystalline receptivity, preparing your body to become a vessel for higher consciousness. The Nag Hammadi text called the Thunder Perfect Mind contains a passage where the divine feminine speaks, revealing the multifaceted nature of the divine. I am the silence that is incomprehensible and the idea whose remembrance is frequent. I am the voice whose sound is manifold and the word whose appearance is multiple. I am the utterance of my name. This cryptic poetry is actually describing the multidimensional nature of the monad frequency, its paradoxical existence. It exists simultaneously as silence and sound, as nothing and everything, as the void that contains all potential, the source from which all things arise. But there's a darker aspect to this teaching that we must confront honestly, a shadow side that we cannot ignore. Not every ringing, not every frequency you experience is from the monad. Not every voice that whispers in your ear is divine. The Gnostic texts warned extensively about what they called archontic interference, counterfeit frequencies designed to confuse, to drain your energy, to lead you astray from your true path, to lure you into the labyrinth of illusion. The archons, those beings Jesus described as the rulers of this world, the entities that seek to maintain their control over humanity, they also use sound frequencies as weapons of control, manipulating our perceptions and influencing our thoughts through subtle vibrations. This is why discernment becomes absolutely critical, the ability to distinguish between the true and the false. How do you distinguish between the authentic monad frequency and archontic interference? How can you tell the difference between the voice of the divine and the whispers of deception? Jesus gave his disciples a simple test that the Gospel of Thomas records, a practical guide for navigating the treacherous waters of spiritual awakening. If you bring forth what is within you, what you have will save you. If you do not have that within you, what you do not have within you will kill you. The genuine monad frequency always produces specific effects, verifiable results. A sense of profound peace beneath any surface turbulence, a feeling of coming home, of remembering something ancient and true, a deep resonance within your soul. You feel expanded, connected, aligned with purpose. Your heart center opens, love flows naturally, compassion arises spontaneously. Archontic frequencies, by contrast, create anxiety, fear, paranoia, grandiosity, or a draining exhaustion, a sense of depletion. They often come with intrusive thoughts, negative spirals, or an inflated sense of special mission that separates you from others rather than connecting you to all life, a feeling of superiority that breeds judgment and division. If the ringing leaves you feeling superior, chosen in an egotistical sense, or fuels judgment toward those who don't hear it, that's not the monad. That's interference masquerading as divine contact, a counterfeit signal designed to lead you astray. The Pistis Sophia contains a crucial teaching about this that most people miss, a warning about the dangers of mistaking illusion for reality. When Sophia, the divine wisdom, falls from the pleroma into the lower realms, she encounters beings who imitate the light but are not the light, who create likenesses and shadows of the true divine emanations, deceptive imitations designed to trap the unwary. Jesus explains to Mary Magdalene that discernment comes not from the intellect, not from logical analysis, but from the purified heart, a heart cleansed of ego and filled with love. Only those who have conquered their own inner archons, their own ego-driven desires and fears, can accurately perceive the difference between the true voice of the monad and the deceptive whispers of interference. There's another layer to this mystery that reveals why the frequency intensifies during specific global or personal transitions, why it seems to become more pronounced during times of upheaval. The monad doesn't exist in linear time the way we experience it from the limited perspective of the incarnated self. From the perspective of the source, all moments exist simultaneously. Past, present, and future are all now, interwoven in a tapestry of infinite possibility. When major shifts are occurring in the collective timeline, when humanity approaches crucial choice points, or when your individual soul is about to make a quantum leap in evolution, the monad frequency becomes more insistent, more penetrating, amplifying its signal. It's trying to keep you on course, to prevent you from getting swept away by the chaos of transformation, to guide you through the turbulent waters of change. The Hermetic principle of correspondence, as above, so below, means that what's happening in your individual consciousness is mirrored in the collective and vice versa, that the microcosm reflects the macrocosm. When you hear that ringing, especially if many chosen ones are experiencing it simultaneously during the same period, it indicates that a massive recalibration is occurring in the morphogenetic field of human consciousness, a collective shift in awareness that is transforming the very fabric of reality. You're not just receiving a personal transmission, a private message from the divine. You're participating in a species-wide upgrade, an evolutionary leap that's been prophesied in every wisdom tradition, a shift into a higher state of being. The Zohar, the foundational text of Kabbalah, speaks of the breaking of the vessels and the subsequent gathering of the sparks, a profound cosmological event that reshapes the universe. This cosmological event describes how the divine light shattered into infinite fragments that fell into matter and how those fragments are now being called back, reassembled, made whole again, a process of cosmic restoration. Every time you hear that monad frequency and consciously acknowledge it, attune to it, allow it to do its work within you, you're participating in this cosmic restoration, you're helping to heal the fragmentation of God itself, you're contributing to the reunification of all things. Jesus saved his deepest teaching for this point, the most profound revelation of all. The ringing you experience is not just the monad calling you, a signal from a distant source. It's you calling yourself, a dialogue between your present self and your higher self. The you that still exists in the pleroma, the you that never fell into forgetfulness, the you that remained in perfect union with the source is reaching across dimensions to remind this incarnated fragment who you really are, to awaken you to your true potential. The call is coming from your own highest self, your own divine nature that has never been separate from the monad, your own eternal essence reaching out to guide you home. When you truly understand this, the ringing transforms from something that happens to you into a dialogue, a communion, a bridge between your limited human self and your infinite eternal nature, a pathway to self-realization. Now we arrive at the most crucial part of this transmission, the practical application of this ancient knowledge. How to work consciously with the monad frequency when it breaks through, how to harness its power for personal transformation and spiritual growth. Knowing the theory changes nothing if you don't apply sacred practice to transform that knowledge into lived gnosis, into direct experiential understanding. What I'm about to share are techniques drawn from the mystery schools, practices tested across millennia, adapted for those of you navigating this current timeline where the veils between dimensions are thinner than they've ever been, where the barriers to spiritual awakening are crumbling. The first practice is what the ancient therapeuti, the mystical Jewish sect that some scholars believe Jesus was initiated into, called the sacred pause, a simple yet profound technique for cultivating inner awareness. The moment you become aware of the ringing, stop everything. Don't push through it, don't ignore it, don't distract yourself. This is the critical mistake most people make. They notice the frequency but immediately return their attention to whatever they were doing, missing the entire transmission of profound insight. Instead of dismissing it, try this. If at all possible, gently close your eyes, grounding yourself in the present moment. Place one hand softly on your heart, the seat of your intuition and compassion, and the other on your belly, the center of your grounding and inner wisdom. Take 3 deep, slow breaths, inhaling peace and exhaling any tension or resistance. As you breathe, internally affirm, I am here, fully present in this moment. I am listening, open to receiving guidance. I am ready to receive whatever wisdom the universe is offering. This simple act of acknowledgement, this conscious intention, creates what quantum physics would beautifully describe as a collapse of the wave function. You intentionally shift your state of being from that of an unconscious receiver, passively bombarded by stimuli, to a conscious participant, actively engaging with the subtle energies around you. The monad frequency, far from being a random occurrence, is intelligent, responsive, and deeply interconnected with your own consciousness. It resonates with your attention, seeking a harmonious connection. When you consciously attune to it, turning inward rather than passively experiencing it as an external phenomenon, the quality of the transmission undergoes a profound transformation. Information that was previously waiting patiently in the realm of potential suddenly downloads into your conscious awareness. Insights begin to surface, illuminating your path. Solutions to problems you've been wrestling with, those seemingly intractable challenges that have occupied your thoughts for days, weeks, or even years, suddenly become strikingly clear. This isn't magic. It's mechanics, the fundamental mechanics of consciousness and energy. You're consciously opening the channel, widening the bandwidth of your perception, allowing greater clarity and understanding to flow through. The second technique is rooted in the ancient Hermetic principle of, as within, so without, a profound mirror reflecting the interconnectedness of inner and outer realities. Once you've acknowledged the presence of the frequency, the subtle ringing in your ears, begin to internally match its vibration. This may sound complex or esoteric, but your body, your innate wisdom, already possesses the capability to do this. You simply need to give it permission, to grant it the space and intention to express its natural resonance. Focus your awareness intensely on the ringing sound. Allow it to fill your consciousness. Then imagine that you're humming that exact same pitch internally, not necessarily with your physical voice, but with your entire being, every cell vibrating in unison. Feel your cells begin to resonate in perfect harmony with the frequency, a symphony of subtle energy flowing through your system. The ancient Egyptians, with their profound understanding of the subtle realms, understood that when 2 frequencies come into perfect harmonic alignment, a third, more powerful frequency is born, a transcendent wave they called the tone of transformation. This is the alchemical marriage of energies, the birth of something entirely new. As you hold this resonance, this intentional state of harmonic alignment, scan your body with your inner awareness. Allow your attention to gently travel throughout your physical form. The monad frequency, as it moves through you, will often reveal blockages, areas where old trauma, limiting beliefs, or dense emotional energy is stored, stagnant pools hindering the flow of your life force. You might suddenly feel warmth or tingling in specific areas, indicators of underlying energetic patterns. Perhaps a sensation in your throat, signaling unspoken words or truths yearning to be expressed. Your solar plexus might tighten, revealing held fear or a need for control. Your heart may ache, echoing grief or unforgiveness that has crystallized there, creating a barrier to unconditional love. Don't try to force, fix, or change what you discover. Simply breathe deeply into those areas, sending them gentle awareness and compassion. Allow the frequency to do its work, to act as a divine solvent, dissolving what no longer serves your highest evolution, gently releasing the patterns that are holding you back from your full potential. The third practice addresses the challenge of discernment, the ability to differentiate between genuine guidance and energetic interference, a topic we discussed earlier. Create what the Gnostics called a criterion of truth within yourself, an internal compass guiding you towards authenticity. After each experience with the ringing, after each conscious connection with the monad frequency, take a moment to journal, meditate, or simply reflect on how you feel. Ask yourself these potent questions. Questions that Jesus posed to his disciples in the secret teachings. Questions designed to unlock inner wisdom. Does this frequency make me feel more loving or more fearful? Does it expand my sense of connection to all things or contract me into isolation, creating a sense of separation? Does it inspire acts of service and compassion or feed my ego, fueling feelings of superiority? Does it bring clarity, illuminating my path? Or does it create confusion, clouding my judgment? Your honest, heartfelt answers to these questions will quickly teach you to distinguish between genuine monad transmissions, messages from your higher self, and archonic interference, distorted energies that can lead you astray. Here's a powerful technique for amplifying your receptivity, a practice drawn from the ancient Essene tradition. Once a day, ideally at dawn or dusk when the veil between worlds is thinnest, find a quiet space and sit in silence for at least 15 minutes with the specific intention of inviting the monad frequency into your awareness. Don't strain, force, or try to control the experience. Simply sit with an open, receptive awareness, a gentle curiosity, and internally speak these words. I consecrate this vessel, my body and mind, as a channel for the highest frequency. May the monad speak its wisdom, and may I have the ears to hear, the heart to understand. Most days, nothing outwardly dramatic will happen, but you are patiently training your consciousness, building new neural pathways, strengthening the energetic circuitry that allows higher frequencies to flow through you with less resistance. When the ringing comes spontaneously during your daily life, especially if it's intense or persistent, the Kabbalists taught a powerful practice called elevation through descent. Whatever you're doing in that moment, working, talking, driving, cooking, silently dedicate that activity to the divine source. Transform the mundane into the sacred by consciously performing your task as an offering, an expression of your divine nature working through your human form. This practice prevents spiritual bypass, the tendency to use mystical experiences to avoid engaging fully with the challenges of physical reality. The monad doesn't want you to escape the world. It wants you to transform it, to imbue it with higher frequencies, bringing light and love into material form. There's a critical practice for those moments when the frequency becomes almost overwhelming, when it's so loud or intense that it creates discomfort or even pain. This often happens during major downloads, when your energetic system is being upgraded beyond its current capacity, expanding to hold more light. The Tibetan tradition teaches something called the lightning path. You ground the frequency. Place your bare feet on the earth if possible, connecting directly with the grounding energy of the planet. If that's not possible, visualize roots extending from your spine, reaching deep into the earth's core. Then consciously direct the frequency from your crown chakra, the gateway to higher consciousness, down through your central channel, the energetic highway of your body, and into the earth. You become a lightning rod, a conduit between heaven and earth. This not only protects your nervous system from being overwhelmed, but also anchors higher frequencies into the planetary grid, serving the collective awakening of humanity. For those experiencing the frequency during sleep or in that liminal space between waking and dreaming, the practice shifts. Keep a recording device or journal by your bed. The moment you wake with the ringing still present, immediately capture any images, symbols, or information that came with it, before your rational mind fully engages and translates everything into familiar concepts. The monad often communicates in what the ancients called the language of light: geometric patterns, vibrant colors, abstract symbols that your logical mind can't readily decode, but your soul understands perfectly. Recording these transmissions builds a personal codex of revelation, a treasure trove of inner wisdom that becomes clearer and more meaningful over time. Finally, and this might be the most important practice of all, create community with others who hear the frequency, with those who resonate with this understanding. Jesus didn't work alone. He gathered disciples, created a mystery school, because the alchemical process of awakening accelerates exponentially in the presence of other activated souls. When two or more chosen ones come together in conscious recognition of the monad frequency, your individual receivers create what's called a resonance matrix, a unified field that can handle much higher voltages of divine transmission than any single person could sustain alone. This is the true meaning of the saying, "Where two or three are gathered in my name, there I am." We've journeyed together through the hidden corridors of ancient wisdom, through the forbidden teachings that Jesus shared only with those who had ears to hear. And now you stand at a threshold that few ever reach, the conscious understanding that you are not a random biological accident experiencing occasional auditory anomalies. You are a divine spark, a fragment of the monad itself, temporarily housed in flesh and bone, equipped with the sacred technology to hear the voice of your own source calling you home. That ringing in your ears is the universe refusing to let you forget who you are, a persistent reminder of your true nature. Every high-pitched tone, every celestial frequency that breaks through the static of ordinary consciousness is a love letter written in sound, a reminder encoded in vibration that you are so much more than the small story your mind has been telling about yourself. The monad doesn't speak in words. Words are too limited, too contaminated by human misunderstanding, too easily misinterpreted. It speaks in pure frequency, in the language that existed before language, in the sound that is simultaneously the first sound and the eternal sound, the sound that never began and will never end. Jesus understood something that the institutional church has spent 2 millennia trying to obscure. Salvation is not a future event dependent on belief in correct doctrines. Salvation is a present moment remembering, a gnosis that strikes like lightning when the monad frequency penetrates deep enough to shatter the illusion of separation. Every time you hear that ringing and consciously attune to it rather than dismissing it, you are participating in your own resurrection. You are quite literally being raised from the dead. The death of forgetfulness, the death of identification with matter alone, the death of the false self that believes it's separate from the divine. The chosen ones scattered across this planet, many of you watching this right now, you are living antenna arrays, anchoring higher dimensional frequencies into a world that is transforming, whether it realizes it or not. Your ability to hear what others cannot is not a privilege. It's a responsibility. You didn't ask for this capacity because you thought it would be easy or comfortable. You asked for it because your soul knew that humanity would need guides during this transition, that the collective awakening would require individuals willing to be conduits for the monad frequency, even when it's uncomfortable, even when you feel isolated, even when the world calls you crazy for paying attention to sounds that don't appear on any medical instrument. Let me leave you with this final transmission, spoken directly from the understanding Jesus imparted to those closest to him. The goal is not simply to hear the monad frequency. The goal is to become it, to vibrate at such a level of harmonic alignment with your source that the distinction between the signal and the receiver dissolves entirely. When you reach that state, and every practice, every conscious attunement brings you closer, you realize that the ringing was never something external happening to you. It was always you, the eternal you, the infinite you, singing the song of your own existence across the dimensional divide, calling yourself back to remembrance. So tonight, when the ringing comes, and it will come, because you've now activated something by receiving this knowledge, don't reach for explanations rooted in material science. Don't let anyone convince you it's merely a physical phenomenon. Stand in your knowing. Close your eyes. Place your hand on your heart and whisper to the deepest part of yourself. I remember. I hear you. I am coming home. The journey of 1,000 lifetimes culminates in that single moment of conscious recognition. If this transmission has awakened something within you, if you feel the truth of these words resonating in your bones, share this knowledge with others who are ready. The chosen ones are finding each other now, drawn together by frequencies only we can perceive, assembling the network of light that will midwife humanity's next evolutionary leap. Subscribe not just to this channel, but to the calling of your own highest self. The greatest teaching isn't in these words. It's in the silence between them, in the frequency underneath the frequency, in the monad that is even now breaking through every barrier to reach you. You are the ones who chose to incarnate during the apocalypse. An apocalypse doesn't mean destruction. It means unveiling, revelation. the moment when what was hidden becomes visible. The ringing in your ears is the sound of the veil tearing. Walk through it. Your true life is waiting on the other side.